So it's 2 hours before we start day 2 of the flourishing class. And I thought I'd come downstairs and tidy up my desk a little bit because I finished last night and I was exhausted. And as I was tidying up, I thought, you know what, let me just record this. So I'm going to start off by just looking at some tools and just moving stuff around, checking through the handout. And then from there, do a little bit of warm-up practice, which I thought would be interesting for you to see. So there's the handout. It's really, really lovely and comprehensive. So lots of flourishes, but quite a lot of pencil work to really sort of help you work through different aspects of the technique. A lot of information on things like nibs and inks and how they work with pencil, with different papers, as well as pencil practice. An absolute ton of exercises to train you how to sort of work your way up to getting to here. So today's class, we're going to look at all these pencil exercises, but we're going to use nibs and ink. We're also going to use brush pens and other tools so that students get a sense of how this flourishing technique works across different kinds of tools and materials. Because the idea behind my flourishing course is so that it works with different scripts. It's not just about it working with Copperplate or Spencerian. I wanted a really sort of overall comprehensive approach to flourishing so that students could apply it to things like Fraktur and Batard, some Anglicana, which doesn't really have a lot of flourishing, maybe some Bastard Secretary, but also Copperplate script, really English roundhand, because the flourishes in English roundhand are really much more comprehensive than the flourishes in Copperplate script, flourishes in Spencerian script, as well as flourishing in italic. And if you really want to go further back into historical English italic and then into Italian cancelleresca, because of course these three things are very, very different scripts. Italic is not cancelleresca. English italic, ancient English italic, which is sort of early modern period, rather, sort of Elizabeth I, that italic is different from the italic that we do today as well. And of course, these flourishing techniques also work for things like modern calligraphy. One of the questions yesterday was how to use this angular confinement pattern to show how the modern calligraphy, how rotation of a form has to accommodate rotation of the curves that follow it, and how to plot that rotation using straight lines as they run through ellipses that change their point of origin. So really quite technical, but once you see it being done, you know, the students yesterday were like, oh, okay, now I see how that can be applied. So I'm just going to warm up a little bit because today's class is going to be really demanding, simply because of the amount of tools we're going to use, as well as going through this really technical handout. So my warm-up today, I'm going to use some Thrasher paper. This is one of the grids. And so this is a Hunt 99. Okay, let's set this up slightly differently. Let's use a couching pad, which is a large sheet of paper that I have. I just blow into it here, and it sort of puffs it up enough to give it just a little bit of lift. I don't want a ton of lift, and I don't want to write in the pad, because it's too high and my arm will get caught on the edge of it. So I'm going to line this up. And I'm going to make sure the paperclip holds this carefully but firmly, because I don't want it to slip whilst I'm doing this exercise. First exercise for the day is this, is the training to get this running So I'm using my ink, my own ink, which is coming out soon. Right, so these are the tangential touching points in that square. You can just see it above. And I'm starting, but I'm looking to where I am going to. And as I was doing that exercise, I realized my shoulder was a little bit tight, so I had to drop my shoulder. I can see that the circle is expanding, but there is a box coming up, and I can see that too. And that box will help me to, once I get into it. Right, there's the box, there's the circle. Right, now that the circle is back, there's the other box, there's the circle. So maybe not the best exercise to start with, because, or actually maybe it is the best exercise to start with. So I'm really trying to stay within that, the box's end here. So I sort of should have gone a little bit further, but I didn't really feel like I wanted to go any further on that exercise. Get some more ink. The next exercise is a horizontal elliptical exercise. As I said in the class yesterday, I don't call these ovals. Well, obviously this is not an oval. This is a circle. I call these ellipses because they're even. Most people, when they think of an oval, they think of an egg subconsciously, and that's not what we're aiming for. Look, 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 look. Relax the shoulder. Okay, the desk is a little bit low, so I'm going to raise the desk just a little bit. So with the desk higher, I can just leave my shoulder and rest my arm on the surface. All right, so as you can see, I'm holding the nib like I would normally hold it, but if I'm doing something like Copperplate script, I would hold it here. But if I'm doing flourishing, I would hold it here. Technically, I really should be doing this exercise in a different direction so that the exercise matches what I'm going to do when I come to flourishing. And I can feel a little bit of tension just here, so I need to sort of work on that. So these are some of the basic sort of starting exercises. I'm going to run through a couple other exercises. Now, one of the exercises we looked at yesterday was plotting a spiral. So the idea here is to plot the spiral in the grid and really sort of feel the movement. Zoom in a little bit. And yesterday we looked at some really interesting differences between an arm movement. So we have this movement, a lower finger movement, an upper finger movement, which is more movement of the fingers, a wrist movement, and a muscular movement. So when we're writing, we find that there are a number of types of movements we have to train ourselves to produce. We also have to train ourselves to produce different types of spirals. So that kind of starts me off for the day. So I'm going to clean my table, set my tools up, because of course a lot of these tools are, I used pencils yesterday. Today I have to put some nibs out. So I'm going to teach how to use different kinds of nibs in concert with each other. So for instance, you have an order of hierarchy of, so I use stream ordering, like counting branches, from hydrology. So you have a hierarchical order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first one is the thickest line, and I tend to use a Gillott 303 for that because it's thin and fine and sharp, and it spreads really easily, and it produces a nice thick line with a really beautiful contrast of shade between the thick and the thin. If I get down to, when I get down to the order 3, I would use like a Hunt 99 because it's still really thin and fine, but it's stiffer, so it won't produce as thick a line. Of course, I could do all of this with a 303, but then I don't have to do the work. I don't have to control the tool, because using a slightly thicker gauge metal that's still very sharp and fine will allow me to let the nib do the work. So all I have to concentrate on is the flourish. If I used a 303 for all of it, then I would have to do quite a lot of the work. So apart from making sure that those ordered lines of hierarchical number 3 are the same thickness of shade, I would also have to manage the flourish, manage the smoothness. So you can allow your tools to help you, or you can suffer if you want and do all the work yourself. Sometimes it's best to let the tools do the work for you. So I actually have, all my tools have names on the bottom of them. Their names, like a Hunt 99. Obviously I don't I haven't named all the nibs different names. So this is some of the some of the practice we're going to work on, and I'll show you. I'll wrap up with a flourish. I have no idea what this flourish is going to be, so I'm just going to wing it. So I did a wing flourish yesterday, which I can show you. I'm just augmenting that flourish. And yesterday we looked at how to produce these parallel lines. Let's look at a basic line ending flourish. So we're going to cover these today. And let's look at, I don't know, another type of flourish. So I'm really just sort of playing with the flourish. I don't really like how the surface is affecting the lines, but working on a harder surface becomes a little bit more difficult. So people look at this and say, well, how does this help me when I'm writing a letter? Well, we looked at those spirals earlier on. So those spirals would give us we also looked yesterday, we looked at this kind of what I call a linear curvy line, which is more linear than it is curved because it's really just that. And you can finish off there, and I will plot this in. So we have, that is the angular confinement pattern. And we're going to plot it into here. And these patterns really help to show you where you're messing up with the flourish. So let's drop this one in. Or you could drop down here and go across and back up. So by using this angular confinement construct, it really helps to show you where the flourish is collapsing, because there are tangential touching points. You know, if you have a square, which I show you earlier on here on this grid, here are the tangential touching points, there, and there. And if you are not touching those points, if you've rotated a little bit, it shows that you're off a little bit, and that helps you to understand where your issue with the flourish is, so that you can correct it more easily. I'm kind of waffling on because I'm a little bit tired and I need some coffee and I need to clean the desk and prepare for the day. So I hope that gives you a little bit of insight into some of the things we have covered in the, or are going to cover in the flourishing class today, Sunday, the 16th of March, and that class will be, the recording will be available by the end of the week. I hope this video has given you a little bit of insight into how I see flourishes and how I approach them. And I hope it's also helped you to think a little bit more clearly about the flourishes that you do and how to approach them. I'd love to hear your comments on what you think about what I've shown you today. I will be posting some more content about the flourishes over the coming weeks. Once I spend the time to actually rename these. Yesterday's class produced 117 videos. So we'll probably have like 250 videos, all little videos, once I rename these videos and have the class up. So have a great weekend, and I hope to see some of you on that course working through your flourish.